Mike Florio on loan from ProFootballTalk.com, and judging from the liquor stash behind you in the bar, Mike, you're doing pretty well.
Well, yeah, not yet though. Not this morning. It's still early, but later today I'll be doing very well.
All
Thank you.
right. Well, thanks for joining us from the barn. The NFL's overall strategy here, full speed ahead. With the draft, we're still going to have it. Was there any possibility of them not having the schedule release party this Thursday?
Well, there was a report last week that the league office had been debating whether to delay it because once you release the dates, presumably tickets are for sale. Do you get yourself into a situation where you've got to deal with processing refunds? How do you deal with all of that? But the NFL ultimately decided to go forward. There is a high level of optimism, Dan, that they are going to get the season in. Now, will they have to delay it by a month or so to accommodate allowing people to attend games? And as crazy as that sounds, there is confidence within the league office that people will be able to attend games if they choose to do so, that the world will be very different come September or October. But there continues to be this sense that this is what they need to do. There's a ton of money that is riding on it. Plus, they believe they're doing a public service to those of us who are desperate for sports to return.
I was also wondering about this because I think we both heard from sources that, if there's a truncated season, let's say it's 12 games or 14 games, where do they take those 2 games or 4 games from? From non-conference, the front of the schedule, back of the schedule?
Yeah, I don't know at this point, but it does make sense to look at the schedule very carefully when it comes out to look for those clues. That's the first thing I'm going to do. There's been speculation that the interconference games will
Hmm.
be the first 4 weeks of the season, and those would be the ones that would most easily be wiped out or maybe taken away and put on that back end of the schedule. Dan, I think it is very possible that the season would be delayed by up to a month to accommodate the ability to have open stadiums. That politically, it's going to be delicate in states like California to get the governors to sign off on the idea of letting anyone who chooses to show up, understanding the risks, and testing will be much more prevalent by then. It'll be easier for people to know if they've had this virus via antibody testing. But if delaying it a month allows every state that has an NFL stadium to get to the point where they'll say, go ahead, let people show up if they choose to, that's what they would do. And then I guess they could take those first 4 games and tack them onto the back end of the season if that's what they choose to do. But I'm going to be looking for that flexibility that may kind of scream out from the schedule the moment that it's released.
And I was told that, maybe we push back the Super Bowl, but I was told that the NFL would love to have the Super Bowl over President's Day weekend. You get that Monday off, so now you have that built-in holiday that people keep asking for, the unofficial day after the Super Bowl. What do you think about that?
Oh, they've been trying to get the Super Bowl to President's Day weekend for as long as I've been covering the NFL, I think. They really want to do it. And an 18th game will do it. But before we get to an 18th game, this is a way to bump the Super Bowl back a couple of weeks and get it on President's Day weekend. But look, the mere fact that there would be a Super Bowl this year, given everything we've gone through in and of itself, is a holiday. So just getting the season in, getting the Super Bowl played. I know it seems weird now because we're still in the early days, relatively speaking, of this pandemic. But I have been told with a very high degree of confidence that the world will be much different come August and September, and it will be a lot easier for sports teams to operate, not like they normally would, but in a way that actually makes sense and that manages the risks of people getting the virus.
He's Mike Florio. You can check him out Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. And he's also on the Dan Patrick radio channel. That's Sirius channel 211. Best case scenario for Cam Newton now is what?
Wait, wait for someone to get injured. We had a graphic on the show yesterday of all the starting quarterbacks that were injured last year. Remember early in the year, Cam Newton was gone week 2. Ben Roethlisberger was gone week 2. Drew Brees was gone week 2, although he came back. And I think for Cam Newton at this point, with all the seats taken, with the Patriots showing no inclination to try to add him to their depth chart, you just wait for someone to get hurt and you just assume that it'll happen. And if it doesn't, well, you keep waiting. But there isn't an opportunity out there for him. He's not going to take the Andy Dalton package of $3 million minimum plus the ability to make up to $7 million. He's just not going to do that. He's going to wait for someone to say, Cam, you are our guy. And the other reality, too, and this is what hurt him this year, the inability to go get checked out by a team doctor because he's got the foot surgery from last year, the shoulder surgery from the year before that caused him to change his throwing motion, Dan. That's how serious that situation was. He's got to get checked out before a team will sign him. And I think at this point, he should just wait until the season starts and someone calls and says, we need you right now.
I had somebody say this to me yesterday, and they said, what about Cam in Pittsburgh? And I said, it's tricky because that means, what about Ben with Cam in Pittsburgh? And I don't know how long Ben is going to play. And if you bring Cam Newton to town, it's an upgrade over what you have, but does Cam fit into what Pittsburgh wants to do or it will be doing after the Ben era is over?
Well, and what's he going to want financially? That's the other side of it, too. And one of the things you have to take into account is that if you bring Cam Newton onto a team, you better be secure in your starter, because instantly you're going to have guys in the locker room who look at Cam and look at your starter. They look at Cam, they look at your starter, and it's not going to take many practices before they start saying Cam is the better guy. Now in Pittsburgh, that's not going to be the case, but I think that's one of the inherent problems of him being a backup anywhere, because he's better than most starters. So in Pittsburgh, yeah, it would make sense to have a better backup. I just don't think it makes sense for Cam to commit to being a backup anywhere when he can just sit back and wait for someone to get injured.
We've been at this a long time, and we know how negotiations go. And like the Cowboys situation now borders, maybe it is embarrassing, not borders on. It's been embarrassing with Dak Prescott. It feels like there's a price, and that's it. That's the price, and if you pay the price, then we move on. Feels like everybody else got their price. Dak is saying, this is what my price is. What is the price? Like, what is the holdup here where they just don't say, we're giving you 35 a year, Dak. Here it is. Let's go. Let's move forward.
Well, here's the lesson that all teams can take from the Cowboys' experience with Dak Prescott. The longer you wait, the more expensive it will get. Yeah. The moment you know this is your guy, pay him and pay him now, because it's not going to get any cheaper. The Chiefs need to be listening to that as it relates to Patrick Mahomes. The Texans need to be listening to it as it relates to Deshaun Watson. The longer you wait, the more expensive it gets. And here's where they are now. It's very simple now, Dan. It has nothing to do with the market. They've applied the exclusive franchise tag to Dak Prescott. That's $31.4 million this year. A 20% raise next year. That's another $6.2 million on top of the 31.4. That's almost $37.5 million next year. You put it together, it's $69 million over 2 years. There's your $35 million per year right there. And if Dak goes year to year, by year 3, 2022, he's entitled to a 44% raise over what he makes next year. You're talking about astronomical numbers, and the only alternative is to let him hit the open market. So he has them over a barrel, and it's their own fault because they waited this long. So all he does is sits back and waits, and he's guaranteed $31.4 million this year. The only weapon the Cowboys have left, and I don't think they'll ever use it, they just rescind the tender. And think about that. If they would remove the tender right now and make Dak Prescott a free agent, who in the hell is going to pay him $31.4 million? Who can? Everybody's got their starters. So he would be screwed financially if the Cowboys use their nuclear option of saying, all right, we're taking away the franchise tender. You're a free agent. You wanted to be a free agent. Go ahead and be one now. Good luck finding a team.
Andy Dalton's signing was smart to have a backup or leverage against Dak?
Well, it's smart to have a backup. And here's the other thing, too. Let's say that the Cowboys and Dak Prescott don't work out a long-term deal by the deadline of July 15. That's the annual drop-dead date for doing a long-term deal with a franchise tag player. If you don't do that deal, the player can still stay away from training camp in the preseason at no financial penalty because he's not under contract. Le'Veon Bell did that in 2017, showed up right before the start of the season, made his full franchise tag salary. So now they've got protection against Dak doing that, because otherwise Cooper Rush was going to be your starting quarterback for training camp in the preseason. Now, if Dak does stay away, they at least have Andy Dalton that they can get ready to go. And then it makes for an intriguing decision if it plays out that way. Dalton is ready to go. He knows Mike McCarthy's offense. Dak shows up a week before the first game and says, hey, I'm here. Give me the football. Mike McCarthy may say, we're going to go with the guy who's ready to play, at least for a week or two. That could make things even worse. But it all comes back to the Cowboys not paying Dak the moment they could after that third regular season finale. Yeah. That's when the window opens to pay a guy. The sooner you pay him, the cheaper it's going to be.
I'll leave you with this, with the Packers plan. The the overall game plan here. Give me the strategy, just because I don't understand it, but you're smarter than I am.
No, listen, I'm not, first of all. And second of all, I don't know what the hell the game plan is. Sometimes the plan is there is no plan. And it may be as basic as just trying to ensure that you get the absolute best out of Aaron Rodgers over the next couple of seasons, because he's going to be pissed off that you went out and drafted his eventual replacement. Dan, they invested a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick on a guy who at best is a project with a high ceiling, but nobody knows where that ceiling is going to be. Less than 20 months after they signed Aaron Rodgers to a 4-year extension. Think about that. They've paid him almost $82 million for 2018 and 2019 combined to have a contract that lasts 4 more years with him. Now those 4 years have been undermined by the decision to not invest that first-round pick in a receiver or someone that will help the team win, but in a guy who's going to take over at some point down the road for Aaron Rodgers. It makes no sense to me. And a point that Chris Sims made that I think is just genius. If they had a real owner in Green Bay, if they had a Jerry Jones, if they had a Jeffrey Lurie, a Robert Kraft, one person who signs off on these moves, would one owner have ever said, sure, go ahead and draft a quarterback in round 1, 20 months after you convinced me to sign Aaron Rodgers to this massive contract? Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, maybe I am a genius because, I said the same thing on the show that Chris said, that if you had an owner, I think you go to that owner like Tom Brady went to, Robert Kraft. I can go to you. There's a problem here. Or the owner goes to the player and says something. You're run by a committee. And I think that factored into the Aaron Rodgers situation. I really do.
And Dan, I also think CEO Mark Murphy, I think he relishes that whiff of dysfunction and acrimony. He thinks that gets more out of Aaron Rodgers. He said it last year after that Bleacher Report item came out that threw a lot of gasoline on whatever was smoldering between Rodgers and Mike McCarthy. Mark Murphy liked what that could mean for the team, and they went 13-3. So maybe Murphy thinks, hey, let's piss this guy off because he's going to play better if he's upset.
Oh, I think it's crazy, but
Good for us. No complaints.
Oh, I know.
Right?
Hey,
we don't choose the stories. The stories choose us.
Oh, that's why when Gronk wants to come back, sure, come on back, Gronk. I hope he's safe, but if he wants to come back, hey, it's his life. Great. By the way, I have 2 Tampa Bay T-shirts left, and if you would like one, because we were told to cease and desist, we can't sell them anymore. I don't know if you'd like to. Would you like a Tampa Bay T-shirt?
Am I going to get a cease and desist?
No. I got it. I got the cease and desist. You're a lawyer. We heard from Brady's law firm. If we fought this, Mike, now we came up with the idea 4 weeks prior that we were going to have Tampa Bay T-shirts. We tweeted it out. We built the shirt. How would we have done against a huge law firm?
Well, I've never fully researched the issue, which means I don't know what the hell I'm about to say here, but that's the reality. Do you want to take on Tom Brady and the legal muscle that he would bring down on you? And I really do think, I don't think Tom Brady has any desire to market Tampa Bay T-shirts. He just wants to be able to tell everyone else not to, plain and simple. So I would not take on #Tom.
All right. Well, thank you for that sound legal advice there, Mike.
I'll take the shirt. I'm an XL. I'm massive.
Oh.
Send it to me.
Whoa. Well, the hair makes you, if I was giving you a hat, I'd give you a big hat.
Between being trapped inside and not being very far away from the refrigerator, not being able to get to the barber, I probably added 20 pounds and 18 of its hair.
You're BJ Raji is what you're saying there. Thank you, Mike.
See you, Dan.
That's Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk.